What if I told you that the world's most neutral country could dominate the planet? Switzerland, famous for its chocolate, banks, and happy cows, has everything a superpower needs, except the ambition. But what if that changed? Imagine a scenario where Switzerland decides to abandon its historical neutrality, not out of vanity, but out of strategy. A country with 8 million inhabitants hidden between mountains decides to become the greatest military power on the planet. Sounds absurd? That's because you haven't seen the plan yet. In this video, we'll reveal how Switzerland could, in less than 20 years, build the most advanced military force in the world without firing a single shot, using its geography, its economy, and its obsession with precision as invisible weapons. Because true power doesn't come from the size of your army, it comes from the ability to control the game without having to play.
Most people see Switzerland as a peaceful, almost passive country, but that's a strategic mistake. Swiss neutrality isn't weakness, it's camouflage. Since 1815, Switzerland hasn't entered wars, but that doesn't mean it's unprepared. On the contrary, the country is a fortress disguised as an alpine resort. Let's look at the facts. Switzerland has one of the most advanced civil defense systems in the world. There are more than 300,000 bunkers scattered across the country, enough to shelter the entire population in case of nuclear war. Every male citizen serves in the military, and when they finish, they take their rifle home. This means that within hours, the country can mobilize an armed force of hundreds of thousands of trained soldiers. Swiss terrain is a weapon in itself. Mountains, tunnels, narrow valleys, it's the nightmare of any invading army, and they know it. Hitler considered invading Switzerland, but gave up. The cost would be too high. In other words, Switzerland already has the foundation of a military superpower. What's missing? 3 things: intention, scale, and projection. And this is where the plan begins. Imagine that in 2026, a new Swiss government is elected with a bold proposal: transform Switzerland into the global leader in high-tech defense. No tanks or mass fighter jets. The focus would be different. Autonomous weapons, military artificial intelligence, cyber defense, and precision tactical drones. The idea isn't to compete with the US or China in quantity, it's to surpass them in quality. Switzerland already has the money. Its per capita GDP is among the world's highest. It already has the infrastructure, with cutting-edge universities like ETH Zurich. And it already has the reputation, a trustworthy, stable, discreet country. Now, it would use all of this to create what we'll call the Ghost Force, an invisible, decentralized, highly technological military structure capable of neutralizing threats before they even manifest. But how do you scale this without drawing attention? How do you transform a neutral country into a military power without firing a shot? In the next part, we'll reveal the plan in 3 phases and how Switzerland could use its neutrality as a geopolitical weapon.
The plan is divided into 3 phases. Phase 1, silent technological dominance. The first step doesn't involve tanks, soldiers, or military parades. It involves chips, algorithms, and laboratories. Switzerland would invest massively in startups and research centers focused on next-generation military technology, autonomous drones, AI-based defense systems, quantum encryption, and micro-scale weaponry. All of this under the guise of defensive national security. ETH Zurich, already considered the MIT of Europe, would become the nerve center of this project. Scientists would be recruited globally with massive salaries and complete research freedom. The goal? Create technologies that render the current defense systems of major powers obsolete. Phase 2. Invisible militarization. While the world still sees Switzerland as neutral, the country begins transforming its civil infrastructure into military infrastructure without altering its appearance. Railway tunnels begin housing mobile drone silos. Hydroelectric power stations become energy hubs for electromagnetic pulse weapons. Swiss satellites, officially meteorological, begin mapping global military movement patterns in real time. All of this without violating international treaties. After all, Switzerland isn't attacking anyone. It's simply protecting itself. Phase 3. Asymmetric power projection. With its ghost force ready, Switzerland begins acting as the silent arbiter of global conflicts. Example: a cyber attack threatens Germany's electrical infrastructure. Within seconds, the Swiss system neutralizes the threat before the German government even realizes it. In return, Switzerland gains privileged access to data, trade agreements, and political influence. This type of power, invisible, precise, inevitable, is far more effective than aircraft carriers or nuclear missiles. It's the power of whoever controls the battlefield before it even begins. And the most brilliant part, no one can accuse Switzerland of aggression. It remains neutral, officially. But in practice, it becomes indispensable to global security. And that's more powerful than any army.
Switzerland doesn't need oil, colonies, or international loans to finance its transformation into a military superpower. It already has the most powerful weapon of the 21st century, the global financial system, in its hands. Let's look at the numbers. It's estimated that more than $7 trillion are under the management of Swiss banks. The country is home to more than 200 international financial institutions, including headquarters of central banks, sovereign wealth funds, and private equity firms. And most importantly, Switzerland is seen as the safest place in the world to keep money, including money from dictators, billionaires, and governments. Now imagine the following scenario. The Swiss government creates a new type of sovereign wealth fund called the Swiss Strategic Defense Fund, SSDF. Officially, it serves to protect national infrastructure against cyber and technological threats, but in practice, it becomes the financial engine of the country's new invisible military force. How does it work? Private investors, including foreigners, are invited to invest in the fund with promises of absolute secrecy and guaranteed returns via defense contracts. The fund invests in Swiss military technology companies, which develop surveillance systems, drones, AI, and digital security. Part of the profits is reinvested in critical infrastructure, such as satellites, quantum networks, and automated bunkers. Result: Switzerland creates a defense ecosystem funded by global fear itself. The more unstable the world becomes, the more money flows into the Swiss system, and the more money flows in, the more powerful its ghost force becomes. But there's an even more strategic detail. Switzerland could condition access to certain financial services, such as privileged currency exchange, asset protection, or access to secure banking networks, on silent geopolitical cooperation. In other words, if you want to keep your money safe, cooperate with Switzerland. It's not blackmail, it's diplomacy at the highest level. Now, let's explore the global impact of this plan, how the US, China, and NATO would react to a Switzerland armed to the teeth, and why, perhaps, no one can stop it.
When Switzerland begins projecting power silently, the world notices, but it doesn't know how to react. The United States views the movement with suspicion. After all, Switzerland is building an invisible military force based on technology that even the Pentagon doesn't completely master. But the problem is that Switzerland isn't violating any rules, no treaties, no direct provocation.
Moreover, the U.S. depends on the Swiss financial system for delicate operations, capital movements, and even discreet diplomatic negotiations. Confronting Switzerland would mean giving up one of the most useful tools of American geopolitics, Switzerland's reliable neutrality. China, on the other hand, tries to get closer. It offers technological partnerships, research agreements, market access. But Switzerland refuses, with elegance. It doesn't want to align with any bloc. It wants to be the arbiter above the game. NATO discusses in closed-door meetings whether Switzerland represents a threat. But how can you justify action against a country that has never attacked anyone, that is only defending itself, that offers cybersecurity even to the alliance's own members? The genius of the Swiss plan lies precisely there. No one can attack it without appearing to be the aggressor, and no one can ignore it, because it now controls the invisible keys to global security. Switzerland becomes what we call a negative power. It doesn't dominate territories, doesn't impose ideologies, doesn't demand submission. But any country that ignores it loses access to security, information, and financial stability. And most surprisingly, the Swiss population supports it, because the country continues without wars, without occupations, without deaths. It's the first military superpower in history that doesn't need to fight to win. In the next and final part, we'll show how this plan changes the global balance of power, and why, if Switzerland wanted to, it could shut down the world with a single click.
By 2045, Switzerland doesn't have nuclear warheads. It doesn't have aircraft carriers. It doesn't have military bases scattered across the planet. But it has something far more dangerous: the invisible button. This button isn't literal, it's systemic, and it's embedded in three critical layers of the modern world. Global financial infrastructure. Switzerland controls clearing networks, settlement chambers, and custody systems that move trillions of dollars daily. If it decides to freeze certain operations, even for 24 hours, chaos erupts in global markets. Cybersecurity of critical infrastructure. With its ghost force, Switzerland becomes the digital security provider for dozens of countries. Energy, transportation, telecommunications. If it shuts down its protection, the world becomes vulnerable, and everyone knows it. And international trust. Switzerland's greatest asset isn't tangible, it's trust. Governments, corporations, and individuals trust that Switzerland is neutral, stable, predictable. But now that trust has become currency, and whoever controls trust controls the game. In other words, Switzerland doesn't need to threaten anyone. It just needs to suggest it can leave the game, and the game collapses. This is the apex of the strategy: win without fighting, dominate without occupying, control without appearing. And perhaps the most ironic part of all, the world allowed it. Because for centuries, it underestimated Switzerland. It saw its neutrality as weakness. It ignored its obsession with order, precision, and security. But now, the country of clocks controls time.
If this plan seems impossible, it's because you're still thinking like a common country. Now tell me, which other quiet country could be preparing something similar? Comment below, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because in the next videos, we're going to reveal the invisible plans that are shaping the future of global power. And remember, whoever understands strategy is never caught by surprise.